Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel and to this video which I've been thinking about doing for some time now. This is the first head-to-head duel between two watches that I'm going to try to implement. I have to give credit of course to the urban gentry, you know, that very prominent, very well-known and respected watch channel, Tristano. In that channel he implements this head-to-head type of system, 10 categories in this, I guess in the exactly the same categories that he uses, but I've ordered it somewhat differently. So for those who are not familiar, I'll just go through the movement. I have here Oris versus the Omega, and movement refers to the caliber, you know, the actual automatic movement, or quartz if we're going to talk about quartz. You know, I guess the quality, the certification, the functions of the actual movement. Design is more to do with the planning and the conception of the watch itself. Quality refers to the material. I will include craftsmanship in quality. Style is more aesthetics, how I guess it looks to the eye, how attractive, how pleasing it is to the eye. Performance refers to how the watch actually fulfills the function that it is intended, and over here we have two dive watches. Versatility, of course, refers to how it can be used in different contexts outside of its one main function. Of course, it's sports diving for these watches, but you know, whether it can function in dress, in casual, other circumstances. Durability, I think, is fairly self-explanatory. How tough, how hard, you know, how much knocks the watch can take. Value, I think, is affected by all the above. So what we have is, you know, design, quality, and style more in the conception and making of the watch, whereas performance, versatility, and durability is more towards the use of the watch and how it performs and functions in real life. And then all this affects value, I think, which is of course largely driven by the retail price of the watch. Brand prestige is very subjective, I think, somewhat, but you know, there's also comes into historical features of the brand. I guess how prominent, how foremost in the psyche of collectors the brands are. And then X factor really is the intangible factor of the brand, whether it's, you know, just how people perceive it, where the brand has been in history and recent times. Okay, so those are the categories. Now, what we have here is the Oris Aquis Date that I've reviewed before, and I'll put the model number and links below, and as a text cap here. This is a 43mm watch, recent model in the blue sunburst style with black bezel, a ceramic bezel, of course, a current model. Alright, so that's the Oris Aquis Date represented by this model. And on the right corner, I have my Omega Seamaster Professional 300m, and this one in blue, 41mm watch, and of course also a ceramic dial, current model. Okay, so let's go through the categories. Movement. So what we have here is this Lita SW200/1 or -1 in the Oris, equivalent to the ETA 2824-2. On the Omega, you have the Omega caliber 2500, which is actually a modified ETA 2892-A2. So technically, that is a higher grade movement, that 2892 compared to the 2824 ETA. And this one's been modified to coaxial. Now, is coaxial a plus? Well, I think the Oris Duel, you know, it's been around for a few years now, quite a few years now, but you know, it's certainly not as tested as the Swiss lever escapement, which is the traditional escapement. But you know, I think they've ironed out the early problems. And then this movement, of course, is also chronometer certified, COSC certified. So I think I really have to honestly, even objectively, give the edge to the Omega. I think the Oris has a very solid movement. It gets a solid 8, but the Omega gets a 9. I think that's fair. Design, okay. It's very hard to split this two. I've given both of them a 9. You know, the Oris with, you know, that beloved kettle case, you know, on the side design, those lugs, those unique lugs, you know, that solid screw-in crown guard, you know, the bezel implementation, how it's contiguous with the dome sapphire, that case back, you know, it really has great design. And then Omega also, you know, how much time these two companies, these brands have spent on the design. Look at that, you know, that dial, the skeletonized hands, which they've improved by lengthening that version over the previous version. I think, you know, the implementation of the bezel, scalloped edge, you know, I think they both are fantastic. You know, that helium escape valve, which I guess you could argue whether it's really functional, but it's a design point there. Okay, so I've given both of them a design. Maybe you could give a slight edge to the Omega, because I think really there's just a little bit more refinement, half a point, but really very close. Now style, quality. Quality, I've given a slight edge to the Omega. I think that, again, solid 8, slight edge to the Omega. It's very close, but I think just the craft, particularly of the Omega, you know, those you know, the implementation of the dial with the lacquer in this model, those knurled edge with that polished bit there, you know, that beautiful 9-piece per link type of bezel. Yeah, just you know, the case back again, you know, has its own really its own character. I think Omega does this better than most, of the way you know, it's got a 3-dimensional feel to it. I've given the slight edge to Omega in terms of quality and craftsmanship. Style-wise, again, I think Omega does take it. You know, that famous bracelet, that scallop edge, I think just stylistically, aesthetically, is just a little bit more pleasing. I really like the Oris. I think it's still a very solid watch, but you know, looking at it, the time I've spent with both of this, the styling, this just takes it a bit, I think. Now, performance as a dive watch. I think here the Oris takes it. It's more robust, you know. I think there's no argument about the thickness of the material. It's a heavier watch. It's got a tougher design. I think as a rule, coin edge style bezels just function a bit better than scallop edge. This one they've loosened a bit compared to the previous model, where people complained it was very hard to turn with a glove on. But I think this one still takes it, and the loom is a bit better as well. If you check out my loom video where I've compared these two amongst others, this has slightly better loom, I think. You know, so in those two functions, you know, they're both 300 meters, so the same depth, but I think function-wise, this just does a bit better. They both have the dive extension, so they're equal there. The helium valve, I think some people would probably argue that it's a bit more of a decorative talking point. Whether it really functioned at 300 meters, I'm not sure. I won't comment on that. I have no direct knowledge. Versatility. Okay, so can these watches be used in other contexts? I think they can. You know, I've worn this to work where I wear a tie, and I don't think it looks too out of place. I just think that the refinement and the craft, the style of the Omega just allows it to cover more bases that way. You know, I think, you know, are our trends set by celebrities? Well, maybe, you know, Pierce Brosnan wearing this Seamaster Professional 300m as Bond. Maybe that's just sitting in my psyche there. I think this does take it a slight edge. So, you know, I've given a 9. You could argue maybe it's an 8 and that's a 7. The main point is the differential scoring, I think. I think slight edge to the Omega. Durability, I think this one's quite obvious. I'm going to give it to the Oris. It's built tough. I mean, those solid, chunky links, the chunky case, that very strong looking clasp. It just functions better as a dive watch, which part of what a dive watch should be is toughness. So I think it's quite an easy one, and I've given a sprint there, 9 versus 7. No, don't get me wrong. I think this is very well made and certainly solid, but I think in terms of toughness, it just feels like it won't quite stand up to the beating that this would. I think I've given a clear advantage to the Oris in durability. Okay, so value, what you're getting, all that taken into account, and then the price, which in most markets, this is about 2.5 or 3 times the price of the Oris. In North America, it looks like about 2.5 times. In Australia, it's closer to 3 times. Taking that into account, what is the value that we get for these watches? I have to say that I feel I got a little bit more value for the money I've paid for this watch compared to close to 3 times the price for the Omega. Now that's quite subjective, but that's just my honest feeling. Slight edge to the Oris. I think they're both great. Obviously, you can see my other reviews and my, I guess, how I've talked about these watches, but I do feel I got a little bit more per dollar for the Oris. Brand prestige. I think you can probably guess what I'm going to give here. Omega is almost ubiquitous. I think they were everywhere in the Olympics. You couldn't watch a sport without seeing the name Omega. Obviously the Bond factor, the first watch on the moon. They have been there in history. They've had their name in strategic and key points. I think also when you talk to people, most of the time it is in the first 5 brands that come to mind. To almost everybody that I talk to, certainly it has been in my psyche for the last 20 years. Whereas Oris, Oris has had some, prominence, particularly as a Formula One fan. I know they definitely have been involved in Williams F1 team, but really, it's not in the top 5 of most people. It's not quite at the forefront of the psyche in recognition and prestige. So, I think I'm going to give a clear edge to Omega here. Hopefully that's not too controversial to most people. I think that it's quite clear to me anyway. X factor, okay, that intangible thing. What's special, about the brand, about the watch? I think again, I've given the edge to Omega. The Seamaster Professional is one of the most well-known watches around. It's been on the wrist of James Bond. It really, and Omega as a brand, I think the edge has to go to the Omega Seamaster Professional in this case. Oris as a brand is well respected. I think they do some great stuff. And as an independent company, they do their own design. They don't copy. And they've managed to steer away from the controversies that mire some brands, including Omega. Omega has had some controversial decisions which they've been criticized for. So, Oris, solid 8, but, I've given the edge to Omega there. All right, so you've been adding up, I'm sure, or you can already see what the edge is as you look at the numbers. It does go to the Omega Seamaster Professional. 3-point spread, you could argue, half a point, 1 point either way. I think clearly they are both fantastic watches. They both have great design. Omega has the edge in quality, style, the brand prestige. Oris clearly, I think, has the edge in durability and is also functionally a better dive watch. So there you go. That's my first Duel head-to-head video. I hope that's been enjoyable. Again, please comment, let us know what you think, what your scores are if you score it. Give us a like and subscribe if you want to keep up with my videos. Thank you very much again, guys, for watching this far, and as always, I will see you next time.